Hi everybody, in this video we're going to go over some problems that you covered in your math class last week. So let's review. Number 1, which is the correct algebraic expression given the verbal statement below? The statement they gave us says 8 less than 2 times a number. So when we're given a statement in words like this, it helps to break down each piece and write it in numbers and symbols. So first we've got the number 8, and then it says 8 less than. When I see less than, that makes me think subtraction. It also says 8 less than 2, so I know that's the number 2. And it says 2 times a number. Well, when I see times, I know that that means multiplication, so I can represent that with a dot or an X or some parentheses. And what am I multiplying 2 by? Well, it just says a number. Since I don't know what number they want me to multiply 2 by, I'm going to represent that number with a letter or variable like X. Okay? So now I've taken each piece and I've broken it down into numbers and symbols. And so now what I need to do is make sure that I've got everything in the correct order, because sometimes these words can signal to us that the order needs to be changed. So I'm going to read it one more time. 8 less than 2 times a number. Well, this phrase less than is very important because it's telling us that we actually need to flip around or turn around these two parts. So even though 8 is written first here, if I want 8 less than something, that means I'm taking 8 away from that amount. Think about it like this. What's 8 less than 10? 2. Well, that's because you did 10 minus 8. So if I want 8 less than 2 times a number, that means I need to subtract 8 from 2 times a number. So that needs to go in the front. So how could I write 2 times a number? 2 times x can just be written like 2x. So our final answer should look like 2x minus 8, which is choice D. I want you to look at choice A and notice that they forgot to turn around the 8 and the 2 times a number. So choice A is going to be that choice that's most commonly picked that's wrong. So always make sure you check for those turnaround words when you're translating. Let's take a look at question number 2. Sammy earns $12 every hour for mowing her neighbor's lawn, plus an additional $5 for watering the flower garden. If Sammy earned $31 on Friday, which equation would represent the scenario? So when you're given a word problem like this, one thing that's helpful is if you look for the number that represents the total. How much money did Sammy earn total on Friday? She earned a total of $31. So if that's my total, then that means my equation needs to be equal to 31. So looking at my choices, they're all equal to 31, so that doesn't help me eliminate anything just yet. So that means I need to identify the other parts of the equation. So going back through the problem, it says Sammy earns $12 every hour. So $12 for 1 hour, 12 and another 12 for 2 hours, 12 and 12 and 12 for 3 hours, and so on. Plus an additional $5 for watering the flower garden. Notice that she's only getting that $5 amount once. She only watered the flower garden once. That's not something she's doing every hour. So, because I don't know how many hours Sammy worked, I'm going to use a letter to represent the number of hours. I'm going to use the letter X, but I could also use a variable like H for hours. So if she earns $12 for every hour, that's like 12 times the number of hours, or 12 times X, which could just be written as 12X. But she also made plus an additional $5 for watering the garden. So not only does she get $12 for every hour she works mowing the lawn, she also gets an extra $5 for watering the flowers in the garden. So which equation best matches what we just showed? That would be choice C. A common mistake is to choose choice A because it's got all of the numbers that you're looking for. However, pay attention to this part right here. Does Sammy earn $5 for every hour she's working? No. So they put the number in the wrong spot there, which makes A a bad choice. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at question number 3. Number 3 says, which expression is represented below? We've got our key over here on the left telling us that each black rectangle represents a positive X and that each small white square represents a positive 1. So when you're given an expression like this and the pieces are just written next to each other, we almost want to imagine like we're adding them all up. So this is like x plus x plus x plus all of these ones here. So one thing that's helpful is if you group all of your x's together and all of your ones together, and then you can write them as one thing being added together. So how many x's did we have here? We had 1, 2, 3. So if I have 3 x's, I'm just going to write that as 3x. But I also have this group of ones over here. And because x's and ones are different, I have to keep them separated. They're separate terms. So I'm going to write plus. And how many ones did I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is going to be 3x plus 6. So which choice is that? That's going to be choice D. Take a look at some of these wrong answers. Looking at choice B, this one is very often picked, choice B, because it's got the 3x, but instead of writing a positive 6, they wrote a minus 6. And because we know these ones are positive, we could eliminate choice B. Take a look at choice C also. Choice C has the plus 6, but it's talking about these x's like they're negative. It says negative 3x. Well, our key told us that these x's were positive. If it were negative, it would have the minus sign in front of it. So that means C is also a bad choice. All right, let's take a look at the next question. Number 4 says, evaluate the expression below if x equals 14 and y equals 9. And then they give us the expression. So it says the square root of y plus 2 times x minus 3 times y plus parentheses negative 4 times x. So remember that when we're evaluating, we're going to take these numbers and we're going to put them in the place of the letters. So in this problem, they tell us that x equals 14. So what I should do is I should go down below, and everywhere I see the letter x, I need to replace that with the number 14. They also told us that the value for y is 9. So everywhere in this expression where I see the letter y, I need to replace that with a 9. So what would this look like? This would look like the square root of 9 plus 2 times 14 minus 3 times 9 plus parentheses negative 4 times x, which was 14. So now if I wanted to solve this by hand, I would need to follow my PEMDAS or GEMDAS rules and go through and follow my order of operations. However, I could also use Desmos to solve when I'm asked to evaluate an expression. So let's see what that would look like. All right, so I went ahead and pulled up Desmos, and what we're going to do is we're going to tell Desmos the value of x, the value of y, and then we're going to type this expression in exactly how it was given to us. So first I need to tell Desmos that x equals 14 and that y equals 9. And now I need to type this expression exactly how it was given to me. So it's very important that you're very careful with the buttons. So the square root button is over here, and if I want to do the square root of y, I just type a y. Now I have to be careful because if I try to type a space to do the plus 2x, it's going to put it under the square root. So instead of a space after the y, you need to arrow right. Once you do that, you can go ahead and write your plus 2x, and it won't be under the square root symbol. And then you can write your minus 3y, your plus, and then your parentheses, negative 4x, and then close parentheses. Before you pick your final answer, triple check that everything you typed is exactly the same as the way it was given to you. So check square root of y plus 2x minus 3y plus parentheses negative 4x. Also double check that you typed the right value in for x and for y, 14 and 9. So now that I know everything's good, my final answer should be C, negative 52. Let's take a look at the next question. It says, what is the solution to x divided by negative 4 equals 10? So this question is asking us to solve for x. So remember, when you want to solve for a variable that you don't know, like x, you want to get x by itself. So ask yourself, what operations are happening to x in this problem? Well, x is being divided by -4. And I know when I want to solve equations, I need to use inverse operations. So because this equation involves division, I need to ask myself, what's the opposite of division? Well, that would be multiplication. So because we divided by -4 over here, to undo that, I'm going to multiply by -4, and I'm going to multiply by -4, and I'm going to do that on both sides of my equation to always keep it balanced. The cool part about multiplying by this number down below is that it cancels out your denominator and leaves you with just x. And x is going to be equal to whatever the value of 10 times -4 is. Well, I know that 10 times -4 is -40. Oops. -40. There we go. Sorry, my pen got stuck. Okay, so what if I wanted to check this answer using Desmos? So I'm going to go ahead and circle the a equals -40 since that's what I got when I solved by hand. But what if I wasn't sure? I couldn't remember how to solve for x. You could also use Desmos to do this. Oops. So how would you do that? So you're going to take the side of the equation that has the variable in it, and you're going to type that into Desmos. So I want to type in x divided by -4. So I hit my fraction button. I'm going to put an x in the numerator and -4 in the denominator. And I don't want to type anything else except for what's on this side of the equation. So I'm going to hit enter. And I know that it's supposed to equal 10. So next I'm just going to write 10 and leave that there so that I remember that it's supposed to equal 10. And now, since I've got choices that they gave me, A, B, C, and D, I'm going to type each one of these in, and I'm going to see when I plug that in for the value of x, which one of these will equal 10. This little red exclamation mark triangle is going to go away and tell me the answer. So let's check each one. It says if x equals -40, well, then it would equal 10, and that's exactly what we wanted it to say. So we know -40 is a good choice. But what if I typed in -6? Right away, it's saying 1.5, and that's supposed to equal 10, so I know B is not a good choice because it does not match. So now I could check C, +6, -1.5. Well, that's also not a match. It's supposed to equal 10. And D, 40. So it looks close, but be careful. It says -10, and we wanted our answer to be +10. So +40 is also not a match. So we checked every single one of them, and the only one that worked was that x equaled -40. So now you saw it solved both ways. You could solve it by hand, or you could solve it using your Desmos calculator. All right, and this is our last question for today's video, and it is a review all the way back to Unit 1, just throwing this out there to see what we remember. So number 6, choose all values that are greater than 12/24. You must select all that apply. So remember, when it says select all, that means there's going to be more than one correct answer here. So first, we need to take this fraction 12/24, and we want to figure out what that is as a decimal. Because this fraction isn't in simplest form, it would be good to go ahead and simplify because that's going to make it easier to do my long division to change this to a decimal. So what is a number that I can divide 12 and 24 by, and I'll still get an even number or a whole number answer? Well, 12 goes evenly into both of these. 12 divided by itself is 1, and 24 divided by 12 is 2. So in simplest form, this fraction here is 1/2. So now I want to figure out what is 1/2 as a decimal. You probably have this memorized, but if you don't, you're going to set up your long division. Remember, top dog always goes in the house, so that number 2 that's in the denominator needs to stay outside. Bring your decimal straight up like it's on an elevator, and now we're going to go ahead and solve. So how many times does 2 fit into 1 without going over? Well, none. 2 times 1 is 2, so that's not going to fit. So then I can subtract, and I'll have 1 left over. So I need to bring down a 0 because we already know that 2 doesn't fit into 1. So now I'm going to ask myself, how many times does 2 fit into 10? 2 times what number is going to get me close to 10 without going over? 5. 2 times 5 is actually 10 exactly. So I'm going to write my number down below, and then when I subtract, I have no remainder. So now I know my fraction 12 over 24, which is the same thing as 1/2, is equal to 0.5. Now that I know what my answer or my question is as a decimal, I need to take each of these answer choices and decide which one of these are greater. It's probably going to help me if I convert these to decimals also, because it's easier to compare numbers when they're all in the same form. So I'm going to erase some of my work here so that we have room to show our answers and how we change those to decimals. So starting with choice A, you'll notice that choice A is a percent. You can tell because it has the percent sign on the left. So remember, when you want to go percent to decimal, think about Dr. Pepper. Percent to decimal means you're going to have to move to the left. So we're going to take this decimal point and move it 2 places to the left. 1, 2. So this as a decimal is going to be 0.1513. I'm going to go ahead and write that here now to help me compare. 0.15, and then I would write my 1 and 3 here, but I ran out of room. I know that I'm looking for values that are greater than 0.5, and right away I notice that in the ones place it's a 0, so it's a tie. But when I go to the tenths place, this is a 1 and this is a 5, so this is greater. So this is not going to be a choice. This is less than 0.5, so I'm going to eliminate A right away. B says 0.5. Well, that's equal to 1/2 or 0.5. And I'm looking for choices that are greater, so we're not picking B. C is already a decimal. It's already in number form. It says 15.13. Well, I know that's a whole number, 15, and some left over. 15 point anything is going to be greater than 0.5, so C is definitely a good choice. Choice D says 1 and 1/5, so that's going to be 1 point, whatever 1/5 is as a decimal. So I could sit here and divide 1 by 5 to figure out what this decimal point should be, but I'm only trying to pick numbers that are greater than 0.5, and I know 1 point anything is bigger than 0.5, so I'm going to go ahead and circle choice D. Choice E says 0.25. Well, if I go over here to my list and I write 0.25 in line with the other numbers, I have a 2 in the tenths place. And when we compare place value, we always go left to right. So looking at my ones, it's a 0 here and a 0 here. So that's a tie. But when I go to my tenths place, I've got a 5 here and a 2 here. And we know 5 is greater than 2. So E cannot be greater than 0.5. The last choice here, choice F, says 14 and 2/3%. So if I want to figure out what this is as a decimal, I need to change 2/3 to a decimal. So we can set up our long division. And we are going to ask ourselves, how many times does 3 go into 2? That would be 0. 3 times 0 is 0. And we subtract, we have 2 left over. So we bring down this extra 0, and now we say, how many times does 3 go into 20? Well, I know that 3 times 6 is 18, and 3 times 7 is 21, so I have to stop at 3 times 6. I write 18 down below, and then I subtract. And once again, I've got 2 left over. So I'm noticing a pattern. I'm going to have to decide how many times 3 goes into 20 again. The answer is going to be 6 again. So I notice this is a repeating pattern. This 6 is going to keep repeating. So this is like 14.6 repeating percent. Remember, when you want to change a percent to a decimal, Dr. Pepper, you need to move 2 places to the left. So we're going to take this decimal point and move it 2 places to the left. And that gives us 0.146 repeating, which means behind here we'd see another 6 and more 6s on and on forever. So when I go to my list of decimals over here and I add that, 0.14, and then my 6 would be over here. When I look at the ones place, it's a 0 and a 0, so that's a tie. But when I go to the tens place, I've got a 5 and a 1. Well, 5 is definitely greater than 1, so F is not a good choice. So our final answer here is that C and D are all of the values that are greater than 12 over 24. Thanks for practicing with me.